Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Welcome to Curious Casefiles, episode
30.
30. 30.
30.
Episode 30. I'm Lisa,
I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jamie.
and we're twats.
And we're twice.
Hey.
Danielle, don't you dare disagree, we're twats. And yeah,
Speak for yourselves.
we did kind of discuss last week the suggestion that we might do Guy Fawkes this week. However, once I started writing it, I realised that as a standalone episode, it was going to be quite repetitive with a lot of the King James stuff and the history that you needed. So
And also,
it wouldn't have made sense as a standalone episode to miss all that out. So we've decided to do Reincarnation instead.
also, it probably had to be spread in two because you'd have to have the story of the known story about Guy Fawkes and the untold story, aren't you?
Yeah,
And
so
the
maybe
situation.
we'll revisit that another time, but for the time being, it just
Oh, I see what you did there. Revisit that another time when we're talking about reincarnation. Well done.
yeah, we'll reincarnate that idea later.
Yeah.
Clever girl.
So we're going to just dive straight into this topic. Quite an interesting one.
Interesting, controversial, personal to some,
Yeah.
mysterious, very mysterious.
So we're going to split it into two. We're going to talk about what reincarnation is and what the belief systems are surrounding reincarnation in different parts of the world. And then we're going to go over some cases of reincarnation or alleged reincarnation and what the experiences of those people were. And then at the end, we're going to have a little discussion about it and see what we think. So without further ado, shall we get straight into it, Danielle?
Do it.
Shall we?
Go for it.
Yeah, we
Yes.
should. So first up, what is reincarnation? Now, you probably know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So natural life is cyclical. That means it goes in a cycle, by the way. Just telling you that because Jamie didn't know when I first said that to him. Day fades into night, turns back into day as the sun rises over the horizon. One season gradually gives way to the next. Spring turns into summer, turns into autumn, that turns into winter, and then back to spring, over and over again. Over the passage of time, new generations are born and old ones die. The continuous succession of birth, death, and rebirth permeates nature, even though our own lives seem linear. So it's no surprise that some ancient observers looked at the seeming linearity of human existence and decided that life, like the natural world, might actually be more cyclical than linear. Multiple religions, philosophies, and movements adopted this belief in cyclic life, or, as we now know, reincarnation. And I've got a little picture to show you because we like pictures, don't we?
Yeah.
As you can see, you've got life into death, into rebirth, back into life again.
Yeah, the infinite circle infinity symbol there between them. Yeah.
That's all right.
I didn't even notice that, Danielle. That's quite clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is clever.
And just to Kelly's comment, that's okay. You can always watch this as many times as you want. You can rebirth, like a rebirth. You can watch this program over and over again at your leisure. Anyway.
Absolutely. So reincarnation, also called transmigration or metempsychosis, is the concept that the soul or some aspect of the soul is reborn into new lives. Depending on the religion or the philosophy, the soul can appear incarnate in humans, animals, or plants as it works its way toward an eventual release from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Most religions that believe in reincarnation consider it the path to purity and their form of salvation. So reincarnation is widely accepted by the major Eastern religions. Most prominently, I'm sure you've heard like the Hinduism and Buddhism. It has a history in ancient Greek philosophy. However, for people more familiar with the major monotheistic religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the idea of reincarnation seems foreign and maybe even, a little bizarre, kind of hard to swallow for a lot of people. So that's because Christianity, Judaism, and Islam conceive of time linear. So life is simply a short step that determines the quality of an afterlife. For those who believe in only one life followed by an eternal afterlife, reincarnation appears to be an idea of a marathon beginning, or a marathon being run by relay instead of one short sprint from start to finish.
That's a good way to look at it. So you're
It
passing
is.
the baton on over
Yeah.
multiple people.
I was
Rather
shit
than
at
one
that at
person.
school, so I'd be crap.
Yeah, I was never
Okay.
picked for the relay because I was rubbish at running. I'm still rubbish at running, so I've kept that up.
Thank goodness this isn't based on running.
No.
Yeah, if it was based on running, I'd be fucked.
Yeah.
You only get to heaven if you can run there.
Oh my.
Reincarnation versus incarnation. Both incarnation and reincarnation are spiritual and religious concepts. Many people mistake that incarnation and reincarnation are the same thing. Religious people, especially those that believe in these particular spiritual concepts, believe that there are significant differences between incarnation and reincarnation. First of all, the concept of incarnation are normally attributed to deities or higher spiritual beings descending on a lesser physical being, such as the human form. For Christians, this concept is illustrated by the belief that the Spirit of God incarnated into a human form, which is Jesus Christ. There is a higher, deeply religious overtone when one is speaking about incarnation. On the other hand, reincarnation has a less deific meaning. For most spiritualists, reincarnation is the repeated process of incarnation of lesser souls from the spiritual state to the physical state. Some religions believe that the body is just a shell or a vehicle for the soul. The body can be destroyed, but the soul within will remain. So this soul will continue to reincarnate into other physical beings in an endless process of incarnation.
Confused yet?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, somewhat, because well, I guess we can talk about it later, but even in reincarnation, it's like some people think that you only have a certain amount of lives that you'll reincarnate into, but
Yeah.
that comes later.
Right. Yeah. So it depends on the religion as well, doesn't
I think so.
Another big difference between incarnation and reincarnation lies in the question about how these two spiritual processes end. For spiritualists, incarnation is a part of the universe. It's an unending phenomenon as long as there are physical beings living on Earth. That is because they believe that new souls are created continuously by some higher being. Which, in Christianity, that's not true, is it? Because in Christianity, there was just X amount of souls made in the beginning and no more were made. Is that right?
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, God breathes life into any new being, so maybe it depends on the Christian.
The way you interpret it, I suppose, isn't it? Anyway, these new souls therefore will find a physical state to complete the process of incarnation. On the other hand, the cycle of reincarnation ends when the old soul achieves a completion of purpose. That means that the old has attained the highest state of physical state or physical being, and it is now ready to go to the ultimate place where souls reside. Incarnation and reincarnation are different concepts. The former refers to a higher spiritual state descending or transforming itself to a lower physical state. The latter refers to a repeated process of incarnation of old souls until they are ready to take their place in heaven or nirvana or whatever you call it, depending on your religion. Danielle Elvis.
That's me. So now we're going to talk about reincarnation in Eastern religion.
Because there's quite an east-west divide in this as well, isn't there?
There is a big one, but yeah. So in Eastern religion, the Hindu religion is vast and varied. Its adherents worship an array of gods and celebrate diverse traditions. Yet Hinduism, the world's oldest surviving religion, is unified by its acceptance of a concept called samsara, which is basically a chain of births and deaths linked by reincarnation. So controlling samsara is the law of karma. Everybody's heard of karma. Hindus believe that all
Karma's
individuals.
going to get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard the karma.
Yeah. Hindus believe that all individuals accumulate karma over the course of a lifetime. So good actions create positive or good karma, and bad actions would create negative or bad karma. And karma is not assigned or regulated by any particular god. It's simply earned by an individual and passed down throughout their subsequent lives. But while good karma can eventually earn a person a higher place in the caste system in a future life, the ultimate goal of any Hindu adherent is moksha, or salvation from samsara, is what it basically means. So moksha, or the salvation from samsara. Moksha is the final of 4 primary Hindu goals. The first 3 are, and I thought it said karma, but it's kama, artha, and dharma. Concern earthly pursuits like pleasure, power, or well-being and virtue.
That's not doesn't sound very fair, this system. In my opinion, don't come for me, that your soul is collecting bad karma based on things that other people, that's nothing to do with me, have done in previous lives. I've got all this bad karma, even though I've done all good in this life. That seems a bit unfair to me.
Yeah, talk about carrying baggage, right?
That's my opinion. If I didn't do it, why have I got all the bad karma for somebody that's got nothing to do with me?
Oh,
Yeah.
good question.
That's
Valid
good.
point.
Right. Bizarrely, to actually achieve moksha, you must make a deliberate effort to not want it. That's strange. It's kind of strange in
Is that
itself.
the right? I'm confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We missed. You had the picture.
No, he's right.
Right. Salvation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Salvation comes only after a person has abandoned all pursuits and desires and accepts that the individual soul is the same as Barman.
Ramen.
Brahmin.
Like ramen noodles, only Brahmin.
Ramen noodles.
Yeah. The universal soul or God. By exiting the cycle, an individual no longer endures the pain and suffering of earthly existence performed countless times over. The belief in reincarnation also predominant in 2 prevalent religions from India. Jainism, we'll call it Jainism, yeah. Jainism and Sikhism. Jain adherents believe that the soul accumulates karma as an actual physical substance, unlike the conceptual Hindu idea of karmic law. As long as the soul is burdened by karmic particles, it must bind with a body, initiating a series of rebirths. Only when his soul is free from all karma can it exit the cycle of reincarnation and join other disembodied souls in a state of perfection. However, because Jain followers believe that the deliverance is currently impossible, devoted adherents simply pursue purification.
So why is it impossible? I couldn't actually find out why it was impossible, but if they think it's impossible, why are they working towards it?
Aha. Well, if they achieve it, that's a goal of all goals, isn't it? Sikhism also teaches reincarnation. Like Hinduism, the law of karma influences the quality of Sikh life. So Sikhs, to exit the cycle of birth and rebirth, they must achieve complete knowledge and become one with God.
Well, there's a lofty goal.
Mm-hmm. When Buddhism was established 2,500 years ago, it incorporated the Hindu belief in reincarnation. Although Buddhism has 2 major subdivisions and countless variations in regional practices, most Buddhists believe in the samsara, or cycle of rebirth. Samsara is governed by the law of karma. Again, good conduct provides good karma, where bad conduct produces bad karma. Buddhists believe that the soul's karma transmigrates between bodies and becomes a germ of consciousness in the womb. That sounds... Anyway, periods of afterlife, sometimes called the between, punctuate samsara, coming after death and before rebirth. So you've got little periods of afterlife and in between, basically, as it says. So when you die, you're not immediately being reborn. There's like a little period where you're in the afterlife.
Yeah, so some like Catholicism, talk about purgatory or limbo or something like that.
That's kind of
like limbo, isn't
that
it?
kind of makes sense. I mean, if I was if that is a thing, and I was going to be reincarnated, I would like a little break between time, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, can I have just like 5 minutes?
Sort myself out first,
I've just like lived a life for 80 years. I'm knackered. Just give me a day.
Give me a break, right?
Yeah. I really have to go back to that shithole down there, really.
So, like Hindus, Buddhists see unenlightened samsara as a state of suffering. We suffer because we desire the transient. Only when we achieve a state of total passiveness and free ourselves from all desire can we escape samsara and achieve nirvana, or salvation. Many Buddhists believe an individual can end the cycle of reincarnation by following the Eightfold Path, or middle way. An enlightened being embodies the directives of the Eightfold Path, and the Eightfold Path are all about correctness. So correct view, correct intention, correct speech, correct action, correct livelihood, correct effort, correct mindfulness, and correct concentration, as you see there. So the Buddha...
I'm glad they didn't include correct pronunciation, because we're all fucked.
Oh,
especially me.
If that were the case, so the Buddha Siddhartha Gautama taught the Eightfold Path in his first sermon after attaining enlightenment. Siddhartha, who was born around 563 BC near modern-day Nepal, had an extravagant and privileged youth. As a young man, he began to question his spiritual state of mind, or his spiritual state amid such luxury, and reverted to the life of an extreme ascetic. When his hermetic life brought him no closer to enlightenment, Siddhartha decided to pursue the middle way, a state of existence between excess and self-deprivation. Shortly thereafter, Siddhartha reached enlightenment, allegedly.
Good for him.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Jamie's going to take us into the West.
Yeah. Jamie's going, go west.
Go west, Jamie, go west.
Yeah.
Although belief in reincarnation is a predominant element of many Eastern religions, it was also taught in the ancient Western world. Mystery religions, which sometimes transformed into secularized social clubs and fraternities, has boast a wide range of reincarnation ceremonies and beliefs. Some of these early Greco-Roman religions eventually influenced the philosophy of famous thinkers like Plato. Orphism was a popular mystery religion beginning in the 6th century BC. Its followers studied the supposed writings of Orpheus, a legendary musical figure. They believed in a soul that withstood death and could appear incarnate in human or mammal form. Orphics thought that the soul was divine and was imprisoned by the body. By leading a correct life and abstaining from meat, wine, sex, a soul could go to Elysium, a paradise after death. An evil soul would suffer punishments in hell, but neither afterlife was eternal, and after a time, the soul would be reborn into a new body. Only after passing through 3 good Orphic lives could a soul end the cycle of reincarnation.
So you've not even just got to do it once, you've got to do it 3 times.
That sounds complicated.
Like any mate, any wine, or any sex. None of it. 3 times.
I don't know if they'd be worth it, right?
Bacon, though. 3 lives without... I don't care about the wine, the sex. I'm not even that bothered about that. But bacon...
Bacon? She's worried about bacon.
Bacon is number 1.
Yeah, bacon sandwiches.
Oh.
Yeah. So the Orphic interest in death and the afterlife influenced the Pythagorean Brotherhood, another mystery society based in southern Italy. Now, we've all heard of Pythagoras, the philosopher and mathematician, who is associated with, obviously, the Pythagorean Brotherhood. He believed his soul could appear incarnate in a human or an animal's body. This belief led to his espousal of vegetarianism. The fraternity taught that the soul originated among the stars, but fell to earth and joined with the human body. Pythagorean followers combined their religious theorizing with the studies of astronomy, music, and, of course, geometry. The philosopher Plato also believed that the soul was repeatedly reincarnated. Plato suspected that 7 planetary spheres, and I've got a picture of that, let me just find it for you quickly. Put that on the screen, just so you know what I'm talking about as I'm saying it. 7 planetary spheres and an 8th sphere of fixed stars surrounded the Earth. The divine lay beyond the 8th sphere and set the universe in motion. Souls came from the planets, descended to Earth, united with bodies, and then tried to free themselves and reascend to the stars. So that's just a little illustration of, like, obviously the grass at the bottom is supposed to indicate the Earth. Above that, you've got your 7, 8 spheres, and above that, you've got your deity, which is the god of whichever religion you appear to follow.
Yeah.
So it says they tried to free themselves and reascend to the stars. I wonder what happens if they failed. Do they just infinitely float around?
Get reincarnated, I should imagine.
Stuck in the loop.
So then there's the whole thing of reincarnation in science. Although reincarnation seems conventional to the more than 1.25 billion practitioners of Hinduism and Buddhism, it's not widely accepted as a fact by those outside of, Eastern religion. So the Western skepticism of reincarnation is tied to monotheistic religions that we talked about before, that focuses on a single life, a single soul, and an active God who does not rely on karmic law. And with sporadic believers announcing some famous historical figures like Elvis or King Tutankhamun.
Yeah, why do always be famous people, Danielle? Why can't you just be like, I think I was somebody called John Smith.
I don't know. Every product or theory needs a big name, I'm
very dubious when people think that they're a reincarnated version of a famous historical
figure.
figure.
Even though I do think that's false.
I mean, if reincarnation is true, somebody has to be a reincarnation of those people. But do we need like 73 Elvises?
I do have actually a plausible explanation of why it could be more than one, though. But I'll get into that after. But yeah.
Okay. Can't wait.
I think it's all shit, but yeah.
So it's not surprising that people, remain extremely skeptical of the soul's ability to return repeatedly, like we're talking about. So, however, the general skepticism has not prevented researchers from exploring the potential for reincarnation. Dr. Ian Stevenson, who's an academic psychiatrist, he led the study of reincarnation in the United States until after his death in 2007. So Stevenson...
But he might not be dead because he might be reincarnated.
I know.
Yeah.
Think about it. So Stevenson founded the Division of Personality Studies under the University of Virginia's Department of Psychiatry and Neurobehavioral Sciences. So the lab, which later became known as the Division of Perceptual Studies, focuses on examining children who remember former lives, near-death experiences, apparitions and after-death communications, out-of-body experiences, and deathbed visions. So you get the gist. I mean, it sounds like a fascinating study, actually, because we've all heard of some of these, and we're going to talk about them here soon.
And we've got a little picture of him as well, haven't we?
Dr.
Put up the telly.
Dr. Ian Stevenson.
There you go. That's Dr. Ian Stevenson as he looked before he was reincarnated.
Stephen, you often called reincarnation the survival of personality after death.
It's not Stephen, it's Stevenson.
Stevenson, then. He looks like a Stephen.
He doesn't look like a Stephen.
He doesn't look like a Stephen. I just made an excuse for fucking up. Survival of personality after death saw the existence of past life as a potential explanation for the differences in human condition. He believed past experiences plus genetics and the environment could help educate gender dysphoria, phobias, and other unexplained personality traits.
So it's explaining like gender dysphoria. So if you're born as a girl and you've had a past life as a boy, that he thinks that explains that.
Yes, I can see possibly. Stevenson's reincarnation studies focus on young children, usually between the ages of 2 and 5, who had inexplicable phobias or detailed memories about a previous life. Stevenson would attempt to corroborate,
Jamie.
Just like
corroborate.
Corroborate the fact that the children presented with the details of a deceased person's life. He sometimes made startling connections between memories and lives. One Lebanese boy studied by Stevenson not only knew where a deceased stranger tied his dog, but also that the man had been quarantined in his room, a fact that the family attributed to his tuberculosis. Stevenson studied 2,500 cases over a course of about 4 decades and published technical books and articles. He claimed he merely wanted to suggest reincarnation was plausible, not to prove it absolutely. However, despite this caveat, his work was largely rejected by the scientific community. Surprise, surprise. The potential for piecing 2 lives together with coincidence rather than facts, and the inability to perform controlled experiments opened his research to a lot of criticism.
Yeah.
See, well, they criticise everything unless they...
Yeah, so now we've got a little bit of the backstory about different practices and different beliefs about reincarnation and the difference between incarnation and reincarnation. We're going to go over some case studies, some actual cases where people believe that they have had a past life and lived as somebody else. And the first one I'm going to tell you about is about a little boy called Cameron Macaulay. Cameron was born in Glasgow, Scotland. Cameron's mother said her son, since the age of 2, had told her on numerous occasions about specific events that had occurred on the island of Barra. His mother, Norma, stated that although the boy had never been on this island, which was 200 miles away from where they lived in Glasgow, said he often talked about his family, his father, who had died from not looking both ways, that was how the little boy described it, and his brothers, whom he often talked about playing with on the beach. The boy claimed he had a previous life and was concerned, given that his family did not believe him. They thought he just had an overactive imagination. His mother said that he complained that in their house they only had 1 bathroom, while where he had lived before there was 3 bathrooms, which is really a random thing, but whatever.
Yeah,
children do have
really active to pick up on.
Yeah, children do have really active imaginations and can come out with the most wonderful and ridiculous of stories.
True.
Many times the small Cameron would become visibly upset and cry because he says that his other mother would be missing him, and he wished that his other mother could know that he was okay. So it was actually like really upsetting him that his other mother didn't know that he was okay or where he was. As he got older, the information that he was telling about this previous life became more precise. He said that he had a black and white dog, and he also claimed that he had had a black car. He said that his mother had long hair and that his current mother and her would get along, that they would be friends. He often drew his old house, which was a long white building standing on the beach. He recalled seeing planes landing from the bedroom window of his house, and even on one occasion he told his mother that if they ever went to Barra, he would show her a hideout from where he and his brothers escaped to the beach, a secret passageway, if you will. Another surprising fact for the accuracy of the information given by the boy is that he gave the name of his father, Shane Robertson. Now, the boy's mother, Norma, by this stage was worried about her son, so she contacted a psychologist called Jim Tucker, who was a specialist in cases of children who believed that they'd had past lives, or a specialist in reincarnation. With this man, this psychologist, the family travelled to Barra in 2005. And when little Cameron was told that he was going to the island, he excitedly jumped up and down, proclaiming, "I'm going home, I'm going home." So he was very excited. Upon their arrival, they contacted the islanders, asking if they knew about a white house on the bay. The Robertson family gave them specific information that came from the little boy's memories. And the next day, they received a call from the hotel that they were staying, telling them about the existence of this actual house and the family. But obviously, the only people that knew about this phone call were the adults. The little boy wasn't told. So they decided just to drive to the area and see how he reacted. When they arrived, he excitedly ran from the car and straight towards the White House. Upon going inside, he showed them around and told them which rooms he'd done certain things in, and he even went on to show them the 3 bathrooms within this house.
Wow.
Upon entering the garden, little Cameron took them right to the secret entrance that he'd been telling them about for years, that him and his brothers used to get to the beach. And we've got a little picture here of when they arrived, because obviously they took a camera with them. There they are, going towards the little White House. That's the same house that he'd been drawing since he was little on the beach.
Yeah. So, I mean, most people will be like, well, obviously he read about this, or he was fed, this information, or.
But his parents didn't believe it for a long time.
Well, and you think about his age.
Yeah.
And when he started having these in such vivid, and he did, he told them versus, him actually seeing these things.
Everything that Cameron had told about this past life throughout his life turned out to be true, but only missed one fact. When the actual Robertson family, who had lived in this little White House, were finally traced, they were now living in Stirling in Scotland, and Mrs. Robinson did not remember anyone in her family who was called Shine, which Cameron, if you recall, his father was Shine Robertson, but he got the surname right, but not the first name. Yet despite this, he got every other detail spot on. As little Cameron got older, he spoke less and less of his past life, which is something that's a common thread throughout these.
Yeah.
As a younger child, they speak vividly about it, and then as they get older, it just sort of like they're forgetting, or I don't know.
Yeah.
So, and he very rarely speaks of death with any fear or trepidation. As a teenager, he told a friend who had recently suffered a bereavement not to worry about death, that if he died, he would return. And that's the story of Cameron.
Wow.
So, next
Kind of
one.
compelling. Kind of compelling.
It's compelling, yeah.
And Danielle's going to tell you another one.
Danielle's going to attempt to tell you.
I've got another little picture of Cameron.
Oh.
There you go.
So when he's a bit older, yeah.
Danielle's going to attempt to tell you another one, because there's words.
There's words.
There's
words.
We're going to give Jamie a break today, and I get the words. So this story.
And oh boy, does she get the words.
And I believe, was this a Native American? What was the story here? What was her ethnicity?
Whose?
Purnima.
Sri Lankan?
Okay. So Purnima Akanayaki.
Who?
Purnima Akanayaki.
Bless you.
This is her name. This is what I'm going to tell you about. So, psychology professor at the Faculty of Social Sciences of the University of Iceland, whose name was Erlendur Haraldsson. All right, that's the most normal one that we're going to find. Even though it's spelled funky. But anyway.
That is spelled funky.
That is spelled funky. I was thinking the same
so,
thing.
He researched the strange case of this Purnima Akanayaki, a young girl who claimed to have been a manufacturer of incense who died in a traffic accident. So Purnima was 9 when Professor Erlendur Haraldsson saw her for the first time in September of 1996 at her home in Bakamuna. Yeah, you're going to see. Oh my gosh. So she lived in her home in Bakamuna, a small town in the district. No, I know you're singing Barracuda. Every time I say it, she's going to do this little tune. Stop it. Stop it. All right. So it was a small town in a district center of, here we go again, Palaruwa, Sri Lanka. At this time, she was still talking about her former life, which is usual at that age because, or unusual, I'm sorry, at that age, because most children stop doing this around the age of 5 or 6 years, as we learned previously regarding Cameron. So here she is, a little bit older, 9 years old, still talking about it. So according to her parents, she had started talking about her past life when she was 3 years old. And at the age of 4, after seeing a famous TV show that featured the Kalania Temple, which is a temple of pilgrimage for Buddhists in Sri Lanka, and 145 kilometers from Bakamuna. Purnima said that she knew that temple. And a few days later, the girl went with her parents to visit the city of Kalaniya Temple. And upon reaching the city, Purnima said, I used to live on the other side of the river, which was the Kalaniya River. So over time, Purnima talks about more bizarre things. And she started talking about having another mother and another father, which is typical of these stories. And the father worked in an incense factory. And she also talked about a terrible accident with a kind of a bus that was called a zoku. Despite the strange statements, Purnima's parents did not pay much attention, and they just chalked it up as her having an overactive imagination, which probably we all would off the get-go anyway. So at the age of 6 years, Purnima realized that her mother was sad about a car accident that had occurred near the house in which one person had died. So she tried to comfort her mom, and she was telling her, don't worry about that. I've come here after an accident. So her parents, surprised, concluded that their daughter seemed to have memories of another person, or more specifically from a past life. So for 3 years, Haraldson investigated the claims of Purnima, and this consisted of interviews with all witnesses involved, together and separately. And according to the memories of the previous life of Purnima, she had been a man, and he worked in a factory of, where they made incense, and knew the name of the brand Ambiga. Now,
that's quite a random thing to know as well. The
name, exactly. So according to her, he was the best incense maker in the family, because if you're going to be reincarnated, of course you're going to be the best at it. So he's going to be the best in the family. Also reported his death after the accident. Purnima says, I just closed my eyes and I came here. I was hit by a bus. A piece of iron was in my body, she said.
That's
very
horrific memories that some of these people have got as well.
And very specific, So
for a child, though, it's going to be terrifying. Some of the ways that these people died, it's going to be terrifying for a child to actually remember dying.
Yeah. Well,
if you believe it, they do.
Right. So a family acquaintance, Professor Sumana Siri, who lived near the area where Purnima claimed to have lived, decided to investigate and attempt to locate the family that the girl spoke of. With this information, Sumana Siri began his research, and he asked the locals if they knew of any incense factory in the area that, that they could relate to with this. And there were 3 of them. All of them small family businesses, though. And to the surprise of Sumana Siri, a company called Ambiga manufactured incense, and Geta Picha, I'm sorry.
Pichichi.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to pronounce this one. There's like, give me a vowel.
Pikachu.
Pikachu.
So posing as a buyer of incense, Sumana Siri began to ask some questions to the owner of the factory, Lawasiri. And at one point in the conversation, Lawasiri said his brother, Jinadasa, had died in an accident with a bus when bringing incense from a market riding a bicycle back in September of 1985, 2 years before the birth of Purnima. So when Sumana Siri returned, he reported his findings to Purnima's father. And a week and a half later, the little girl, her parents, and Sumana Siri made a surprise visit to the Wasiri family. When the group arrived at the house where Wasiri lived, Purnima met for the first time the 2 daughters of Wasiri. And when Wasiri entered the house, the little girl looked up and said, "This is my brother."
Creepy.
Yeah. Wasiri did not like the visit, let alone having a conversation. Right. Yeah. Let alone having that conversation with Purnima.
Get out of my house.
Yeah.
I can't even pronounce your name. Go.
Well, he did. I mean, instead of saying, "Get out of my," he did. He asked everyone to leave.
Yeah.
Purnima started talking about incense and how it was made, and asked about the packages of incense made by the family and even said, have you changed the packages? So Purnima obviously, like, she's like, have you changed the packaging, the packages in which they're made? And Wasiri got silent. He like, after the death of his brother, Jinadasa, Wasiri changed the color and the design of the packages. And Purnima also asked about his knee. Now, Wasiri had suffered an accident and had fractured his knee. And it was Jinadasa who took care of him. And Purnima said, how is Samasiri and Padamasiri?
Who?
Yeah, right. So get out of here, man. There's so many. Samasiri and Padmasiri were Jinadasa's best friends. Everyone gasped as this conversation became deeper. Yes, I am reading these words, guys. Wasiri was convinced that something astonishing had happened, and Purnima was the reincarnation of Jinadasa.
And that picture is Purnima with Winjasiri. I don't know who the other bloke is. It might be the doctor that went with them.
Yeah, it could have been. So Purnima was born.
Danielle's going to explain another picture to you now.
Yeah, Purnima was born with prominent marks on her lower chest. And when Purnima's family met Jinadasa, the girl talked about these marks. She said the wheels of the bus that had hit her passed over her chest and her left side. The wheels on the bus.
Wheels on the bus go round and round. Yeah, so you can
but
see.
It doesn't end here, folks. So Purnima said
there's slightly lighter marks.
Yeah.
On her chest there. Whether that means that she was run over by a bus in a past life is entirely up to you. I don't know.
Yeah. So she said, this was the mark that I got when I was hit by the bus. Now, Wasiri knew Jinadasa's fatal injuries had occurred on the left side, just below the chest. Jinadasa was also killed instantly, and it was another brother. Of course, there's another brother.
What was his name?
Chandradasa. Right. Who told the family after seeing the serious injuries on the left side of the chest that the lower ribs seemed to want to get out.
So protruding.
Right, protruding then.
I mean, that's a weird
way of putting it.
Yeah.
It is. So some of the most significant details of the case are the two families were very remote and completely isolated from each other. 14 of 17 matching statements were found and reviewed from events that happened in the life of Jinadasa, who had died 2 years before the birth of Purnima, as we mentioned. So birthmarks of Purnima matched the area of Jinadasa's fatal injuries. The girl also had knowledge of the making of the incense, something highly unusual for a little girl, the changing of the packaging. And in general, all these aspects, the memories, birthmarks, self-knowledge, they make the case of Purnima's quite unusual.
To be skeptical, I don't know how common incense is in Sri Lanka, but is it possible that she had seen this particular brand of incense?
Yeah, when you're talking about the
name, parents or one of our other family members,
but then thrown it all together.
Yeah, maybe she was. Yeah, it very well could be. I just some of the other specifics, I guess, gave them question. But is it something that could have been researched? I mean, given her age, because when you're talking about, because she had researched who owned it, the name of Ambika. How did he die? Did someone in the family have, but you're talking about her age.
Why though? Yeah. Rather than just a little bit of interest.
End?
Yeah.
Right.
For what purpose?
But there is another case, and I think Jamie's going to tell us about this one.
I'm going to tell you about Munna.
Munna.
Which is a
you
bit
do that. I hope the names are easier to pronounce than the ones I just did.
So do I.
You made it look so easy, Danielle.
Yeah, you done well.
Thank you.
Right. In India, reincarnation.
I can't even say the title of the show.
Is seen as an empirical fact. However, some time ago came to public light a curious and surprising reincarnation story that, despite having been extensively studied by scientists, failed to be proved as a fraud. Apparently, anyway.
Just because it's not been proved as a fraud doesn't mean it's been proved as
being fact. No, I know.
Mm-hmm.
The wonderful thing about this case is the incredible number of memories of his past life that the reincarnated child can have. A fact that, although it happened several years ago, is still preserved by believers as undeniable proof that reincarnation is real.
Let me be the judge of that.
Yeah. This story starts on January the 19th, 1951, in India. A boy named Mana, I'm so glad he came named Mana, not Humbidabadunjai or something. A 6-year-old was playing in front of the store of his father, who was a barber in town. 2 passing strangers suddenly took the child without anyone noticing. They took him to a distant place where he was later murdered. Now, that's getting off.
Poor little Munna.
Yeah.
Poor little Munna.
The father, noting the absence of his son, begins his search in the areas around the city, only to find that the child had been beheaded at the edge of a river. Oh my God, this is terrible. Yeah. Soon the men guilty of this horrible crime were found and handed over to the police. Well, that's good. But there was not enough evidence of the crime, so they were released. The child's family was devastated and his mother started suffering from severe nervous breakdowns.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her. Your son's been kidnapped and beheaded. They found the people responsible and they're not going to do nothing about it.
Let them go, yeah. There's insufficient evidence, apparently. 6 months later, this story begins to take a dazzling path when in another city in this country, a child is born and in his early years begins to show some strange behaviours. At the age of 2, he asks his parents to take him to his previous house so he could see his parents and his old toys. Besides this, the child has a strange birthmark that crosses the front of his neck.
Now this is it, apparently.
Yeah, I couldn't see it too much, but I can see a discoloration, I guess.
I mean, I'm not convinced by this picture.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a birthmark. I mean, it could just be that he's had like some sort of hat on or something with a strap and they took it off and the mark's been left there. I don't know. It's very straight for a birthmark.
It is. I almost want to see.
This is supposed to be. What year was this supposed to be?
Was it 1950s?
1950s. Yeah. Then a couple of months later, this picture was taken in the 1950s. I'm not buying it.
No,
I don't believe so.
It doesn't look like a 1950s picture to me.
No, we'll see.
I just would like to see it like zoomed in.
Yeah.
But he could have had an elastic hat or something elastic, and it's just left an imprint that's temporary. It's too straight.
We don't know. We'll find out anyway. I'm sure they probably sort of investigated like many of these stories.
Yeah, I'm being the skeptic.
Yeah. 6 months later, this story begins to take that. I read that bit, didn't I? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes this fearful child talks to his parents about his other life, where he was killed by the 2 men, telling details that until the moment were unknown to the public.
That's weird. If he's got details of the crime that nobody knew.
Yeah. This gets the attention of Munna's father, who on various occasions tried to approach the boy until his parents finally agreed.
Creepy.
That would seem creepy, but then, yeah.
Creepy.
I don't know. As soon as the child saw the barber and his wife, he approached them and embraced them intensely. He had recognized them. At the time, he was only 4 years old.
I wonder what they thought about that, the embracing of stranger.
I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's strange. Strange one.
I tell you what I found so far. These parents are trusting and believing. Like, a lot of people would say, oh, yeah, all right, that's nice, dear. Go back to your little drawings, you know. They wouldn't go, let's go travel all the way around the planet and go meet your...
Yeah, let's go and meet your
family.
Your other mum.
So they must be convinced by something.
Well, I mean, we're getting a little glimpse of the story here, but you know that there was probably, there had to be a lot of conversation that went on that made it more,
It happened like over a certain period of time as well.
Yeah, so I mean, they had to be more convinced.
Right.
Said about.
This next story is called The Twins.
Ooh.
This is a very interesting story of reincarnation. It occurred in 1957 in England in the UK. The Pollock sisters, Joanna, who was 11, and Jacqueline, who was 6, suffered a car accident in which they both tragically died. Mrs. Pollock, the mother, became pregnant 1 year after the date of the accident. or she discovered she was pregnant a year to the day later. And her husband had told her that he had a hunch that this birth would bring twin girls who were their previous daughters, which is creepy.
Yeah, that's creepy in itself, isn't it?
So he's planting the seed there already before they're even born. So it's a weird,
I see.
That's a weird thing to say. It's weird.
Yeah.
So he's saying that she's going to give birth to twins that are the same children that had just died.
Yeah.
Weird. Anyway, apparently, according to the story, the gynecologist who treated Mrs. Pollock said that he did not expect more than one baby, but she went on to actually have twins, 2 girls, and they called these 2 children Jennifer and Gillian. And we've got some pictures of those, both as babies and later on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being funny, and I've nothing. It looks like something out of a horror film, like really creepy sisters. Like it's giving me the shine. It's giving me the shining.
You know
vibes.
why? That's because they're twins. They've dressed them up identical, and that always adds a bit of eerie.
It's the Shining, isn't it?
I was going to say The Shining, the girls.
I'm getting the vibes of the Shining. But that is the twins, anyway. Do apologise if you've got twins that you dress the same, but creepy. Anyway. The girl's father noticed that one of the babies had, above her right eyebrow, a scar identical to that of the daughter Jacqueline, who had fallen when she was 3. That's one of the previous daughters.
Okay.
And the other girl, in turn, had a mole the size of a thumb in the same place as their second deceased daughter. But I think he's looking for things because he's already had it in his mind.
So Emma getting instigating.
He's decided before they were even born, so he's looking for proof now. 4 months later, the family moved to another village. But after 2.5 years, they went back to visit the same place in which they were born. And the parents found that the 2 girls knew the place very well, despite shouldn't have any memory of being there. Even without seeing the school, they could point a finger in the direction of where it was. And the same thing happened when they pointed to a place where the swing set and slide had once been. When the girls went through their old house, they apparently recognised every place immediately. When the girls turned 4 years old, their father, again the father, opened a box in which he kept his dead daughter's old toys.
You are making this sound creepy. I don't know if it's you or if it's the story.
I think it's just that the story's creepy. So he's got a box of his dead children.
Yeah, he's obviously got sort of psychological.
Well, I mean, that's not unusual.
Understandable, yeah.
Yeah, but he's giving them to his 4-year-old babies now, but whatever, right? Yeah. The strange thing for the parents was that each girl acknowledged which toy belonged to each of the dead children.
Right.
And they also knew the names of the dolls that the previous sisters had given to their toys. Apparently, the girls showed a fear of passing cars, which is, I mean, no wonder if your dad keeps telling you that you're your dead sister that got run over by a car. I'd be terrified of cars as well. And they apparently had exactly the same behaviour and personality of their previous sisters. I think that the dad had a lot to do with this one.
I mean, it sounds more like witchery and sorcery and stuff like. I mean, the fact that he called this out before they were even born.
I think he had a lot to do with this one, and
I mean, maybe.
He decided before they were born. He was looking for proof.
So he would have had to have coached them in the names of these. Like he had to know some kind of history if they knew the name of these dolls, and I don't know. Maybe he asked family. It's hard to say.
I don't know. Seems a bit suspicious.
It is.
I'm suspicious.
Strange one.
Right, Danielle is going to tell us about. Oh my God! Good luck.
I've got another one with words. So this one is about a boy named Ismail Altinklish.
Are you ticklish?
Yeah, we're going to go with that. In 1956, a boy named Ismail Altinklish was born in Turkey, claiming since his early childhood to have been in a previous life. Yep, you guessed it. Goes along with our theme. And he claimed to be a gardener named, and I don't know why he couldn't have picked a better name, but
so you're convinced that he made shit up? Is that what you're saying?
It must be true because it's got a weird name.
Yeah.
The name of Abed Zulmus. and I have no idea where that came up.
His name's who?
Abayet Zilmus.
See, that's not something a child would typically make up.
No,
Where the hell did they pull that one out?
it's
Even
Abayet.
if the parents told them to make it up, how would they remember that? Whatever. Yeah.
But he was, so this gardener was killed by a bow to the head.
Blow.
A blow. A bow.
No,
A
but
blow.
there was no bow and arrow involved in this case.
A blow to the head. See, all these reading of the names. So the child had a scar, though, on his head, of course, in the same place where, and now it's spelled differently, Zazulmus had been beaten, and used to
Well,
tell.
you can't expect me to type it the same twice when it doesn't even make sense.
I'd rather do the second spelling, but Zazulmus. Anyway, he used to tell his family an entire series of details about his previous existence, and I don't even know how to say that. Abay? Would you say Abay? Maybe they don't even pronounce the E. So it's Abeit. We'll let you viewers figure that out. Abeit Zazulmus, who lived in the region of Bachichi with his family or his wife, Sahida, and their 2 children. He had been killed by several of his employees who crushed his head with an iron bar.
Wow.
I want to know why.
Yeah, why did
So this, yeah.
He must have been a bit of a dick.
Well, I guess he didn't pay them what they thought they were worth. I don't know. The little boy, Ismail, had always asked his parents to take him to visit the home of his previous incarnation, and he finally succeeded, in getting them to do that. When they arrived at the former home of Zalzulmus, the boy could recognize all that had belonged to him, and his parents found that everything fit the descriptions the child had given earlier.
Yeah.
As we heard in other stories. So one of the daughters of Abiyat visited Ismail, and later, after a long conversation with him, was convinced that her father had indeed reincarnated in the young man, Ismail Altinklish.
There she is with her father child.
If her father child. This is probably one of the reincarnation stories that has been, more well documented and allegedly proven to be true. And I say allegedly because really that's relevant to the person hearing it. But with all the documentation and whatever else proof they had, it became pretty convincing to a lot of people that it actually did happen.
How strange. Strange that like the woman who's now an adult, who was a girl, actually recognized or agrees that that was their father. That's really bizarre.
Weird.
Right. This story is about Sam. Yes, I get a good name.
Danielle's like, what? He got Sam? What?
Dr. Jim B. Tucker of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia.
West Virginia.
So he gets the easy name and can't spell or pronounce the university.
Yeah. Announced the story of Sam in a video posted on the website of the university. Dr. Tucker has great experience with cases of reincarnation. He has studied more than 2,500 cases of children who can remember their past lives, and said Sam made some startling statement as he looked at the old family photo albums. One day his father found an old family photo album while conducting a thorough cleaning of the house. As explained, Sam's parents, the boy had never seen a photograph of his grandfather. Sam opened the photo album and began to look at all the pictures. When he pointed out the picture of a car and said, "That's my car."
That's not bizarre though, is it? A kid saying that's my car.
No. But we'll see.
Why would he think he had a car if he was a kid?
I'm playing the role of the skeptic today. Leave me alone.
The devil's advocate over there.
The parents were surprised to see that he was pointing to his grandfather's first car. one that was very important to his life. But Sam's mother was skeptical and had never believed in reincarnation stories. So she tested him, showed him a photograph of his grandfather when he was a child, with other children at the same age. Sam pointed to his grandfather and said, "There I am."
Maybe you look like him.
Yeah. She corrected him and said, "That's your grandfather," to which he replied, "No, that's me." But even with his irrefutable proof, Sam's mother still did not believe that her son was the reincarnation of his
there could
grandfather.
have been a family resemblance here. So,
Well, yeah, there could be. Yeah. So he asked him. So she asked him if he remembered something from his past life. Then the little Sam told us someone had turned his sister into a fish. Now, this sounded like nonsense to me. This would be, as soon as the kid said, "Oh, someone had turned my sister into a fish," I'll be like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, carry on, enjoy the rest of your day."
Not Jesus.
Yeah. The mother, in surprise, asked who was he talking about, and little Sam said, "The bad men." So that sounds like something's obviously happened there. Surprisingly, Sam was talking about his grandfather's sister, who was murdered and the body thrown into a lake. Sam's father said the boy did not know that story because they never talked about that tragic episode in the family. However, they might have done while he was sort of somewhere else and he overheard. Perhaps.
Okay, most normal people are not going to talk about a tragic family murder in front of an infant, so I'll give them that.
Yeah.
But, turned into a fish.
Uh-huh.
A weird way to put it.
Sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah. That is quite strange, isn't it?
It is.
Still, we can't ignore the statements of skeptics like Dr. Michael Shermer, publisher of Skeptic magazine, who asked Dr. Tucker how he knew that Sam's case was not manipulated, which it could have been.
Legit question.
Yeah. Dr. Shermer said Sam's case and that of thousands of similar cases are based on simple stories told by parents, and the events can sometimes become distorted when explained by an excited father. Also, that parents can influence children in various ways. Now,
That's true.
That is true, and I'll tell you after we've done our stories, I'll tell you some examples of that. To these statements, Dr. Tucker said that he investigated the family and found no correlation between this attitude and what the child explained. To demonstrate the veracity of this reincarnation story, Dr. Tucker said that some children have been given detailed information of the places they lived in previous lives. Also, when talking about people who had recently died, the lives of those people fit the descriptions given by the children. Finally, Dr. Tucker said that for him, the ultimate proof that Sam was the reincarnation of his grandfather was a photograph that the child pointed, where he would not have been able to tell which of the people photo was his grandfather.
No, because he might have looked like a family resemblance.
He might have even recognised his grandfather, like for
No, but if there's a picture of his grandfather as a child,
yeah,
and he's a child, and they've got a family there's pictures of my mother as a child that look very similar to pictures of me as a child.
Well,
Yeah.
it still looks like your mother to some people, perhaps.
It looks like, to me as a child, it looked like me.
Yeah.
But I know it wasn't me.
There are strong family resemblances that can be passed on, sure, comparing.
So this is apparent proof of the existence of past lives.
That's not the ultimate proof, in my opinion, though, because there could have been, unless I could see a picture of the grandfather, which I couldn't find, and a picture of the child to see if there was any resemblance. That's not proof.
But obviously, and as we've said before, there's a lot of controversy in the issue of reincarnation in the very heart of science community, as you can imagine, because anything that they don't say is, everything they say is fact, gospel, and things like that, and they didn't change it. But anyone else says anything, they've always got to pick little holes in it, haven't they?
Right. The next story is about Jenny Cockle. I've got somebody called Jenny Cockle, Danielle.
Yeah, I know who I have next. So just go on with your bad self.
It's me with Sam, you with Jenny, and
Would you like to swap and do Jenny Cockle?
Go right ahead.
Oh, you were offered, so don't complain later.
Right.
So Jenny is a British woman who knew from a very young age that she had lived another life. She knew her previous name was Mary, a young woman who had lived in Ireland in the 1930s. And worst of all, that her early death had left 6 children helpless. A desperation that she could still feel like a strange shadow. This was a weight that pushed her to unravel all of these apparent memories and sensations. At 8 years old, Jenny Coco knew she had not always lived in England. Her dreams were always focused on the wet island during a time of hard work and survival. She also knew that her name had not always been Jenny. The other woman who lived in her dreams was called Mary, but she could never remember the last name. Jenny always tried to live a somewhat normal life. Only very few knew that in her reality, her life was split in half, because every day, new pieces of the daily life of a woman named Mary came to her thoughts and her dreams. She knew that Mary, the Irish woman, walked a lot, and that her house was near a stream, and that her hands and fingernails were always dirty from working and harvesting the potatoes that she did for her family.
Right. I'm going to be the skeptic here. Right. Of course, she's going to pick Mary. Right. And this is the reason why. It's like when you ever watch ghost stories and ghost hunting stories or videos. They always find a Mary. Yeah. I'm talking. Yeah.
Maybe it was just a
So
very.
it's quite generic. Oh, I can't remember the surname.
Maybe it was just a very common name, Mary and Ghost.
Well, I mean, it is a common name, but
That was, yeah, it would have been, yeah. Anyway, carry on.
you may continue.
RD says, Danielle, I would have swapped if I had been you.
Yeah.
I know.
Anyway. Jenny. Oh, I've got the same page twice for some reason. The woman's story of reincarnation got the attention of the BBC. The BBC, which are just like, yeah. Anyway, we were very interested in this sort of case. The BBC were very interested in cases involving children.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we do the Jimmy Savile episode, everybody. They published it in various media formats, and to everyone's surprise, the repercussion reached Malahide, a small village in Ireland, where a farmer had identified Mary and her 6 children. Her last name was Sutton, and she had died in the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin on October 24th, 1932, because of gangrene, pneumonia, and toxemia. However, she didn't leave 6, but 7 children behind. These were Geoffrey, born in 1923, Sonny, 1924, Philomena, 1925, Christopher, 1926, Francis, 1928, Bridget, 1929, and Elizabeth in 1932, just shortly before she died. So she had a child. She'd just given birth to her 7th child in 1932. Shortly before she died. So she might have died as a result of childbirth. So that's why she's saying 6. And she had 7.
I don't know, but I think her husband must have found her picking potatoes quite appealing.
Oh.
I don't know what's going on there, but yeah.
There was no television at this time, apparently.
No.
Anyway, so the farmer actually tracked down her 3rd son, Geoffrey, in Ireland, who gave him the address of his 2 brothers, Sonny and Francis. And then what happened next? Guess what happened next? Did Jenny find out? Oh, yes, she did. And she contacted the fucking lot of them. She developed a very special bond, apparently, with Sonny. For the details provided, memories and words, each of these people recognised their real mother in Jenny. Which, I mean, the oldest was only 10 when their real mother died. So...
You know, you're supposed to be sceptical on your own story.
I'm being sceptical on my own story. I'm allowed. Anyway, so they recognised their real mother in Jenny. Their suffering had now been attenuated. The mother's pain about leaving her young children was softened by knowing that they had survived, were now older. In fact, they were now elderly, and they had led a full and happy life, remembering their mother, Mary Sutton, who had given everything for them. And I'm not sure. Have I got a picture? Have I got a picture? Yes, I do.
Pictures. We need pictures.
That is Mary there when she's older, talking about when she met them, and that's her when she's younger.
Wait, wasn't it?
What?
Wasn't her name Jenny and she thought she was Mary reincarnated?
Oh, that's Jenny who thinks she's Mary. Right. The woman,
I got confused.
The woman over here with the glasses on and the blue and white polka dot jumper is Jenny.
Okay.
The little folder on the left is Jenny, who thinks that she's Mary, when Mary's child Sonny.
Oh,
So that's
Okay.
Sonny, who's an old man with who he thinks is his mother Mary, but it's actually Jenny.
uh-huh.
See?
I wonder if she checked if they had life insurance.
Wow.
Anyway,
And now Danielle's going to tell you the story that she was offered an out, so don't complain.
Yeah, but you know, we already whatever. Why you can't go messing up routines? We got that every other anyway. All right. So another of the most famous reincarnation stories. I don't know, famous to who, because
yeah.
but is that of Engin Sungur, born in December 1980 in the hospital of Antakya, Hatay, Turkey.
See how they called him Engine.
Engin. We'll call him Engin. When Sungur was a young boy, he traveled with his family away from his hometown of Tavla. And while traveling, he pointed to a village through which they passed called
Hankuggies.
Hankagis.
Hankies.
I was going with Hankagis, but
Hankuggies. I don't know. Hanky.
And said that he used to live in the
Handkerchief.
village that started with an H. He said that his name was Naif Sisik.
Can I just
And-
point out, the little boy did not say he used to live in a village that started with a name. Danielle said that. The little boy actually said handkerchief. He said handkerchief.
You don't know that.
He actually said the properly word.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the story, boys and girls. He said his name was Naif Sisik, and that
He was seasick.
he had gone to Ankara before he died. In fact, there was a Naif Sisik who had died in that town a year before Sungur was born. But Sungur's family would not know that for some time. They did not comply immediately with his request to visit the village of a past life, which, you know, who would? Like, Mommy, I want to... No.
Yeah.
Give me a little proof,
Mommy, I want to
son.
go to handkerchief because I'm seasick.
My name was Hankies.
Mommy, I want to go to handkerchief because I'm seasick.
So one day, Sisik's daughter, remember Sisik was the one that little Sungur said he had reincarnated from. Sisik's daughter was in Sungur's village in Tavla, and this happened before Sungur's family and Sisik had any contact. Sungur approached her and said, "Come on."
It wasn't. It was do it the Darth Vader voice.
Do it in the voice. Do it in the voice.
No.
He went, no. I am your
All I'm
father.
hearing is Darth Vader.
Oh, the old fashioned
Okay.
Then, but you do it in the
I
Star
am
Trek.
your father. No.
Star Trek.
I am your
Do it in the
father.
Star Wars Trek voice, Jamie.
Yeah. He said, I am your father. That's how he said
That's
it.
how he said it.
He did. Said he was your father. After that, Sungur's mother took him to Hankagis
Handkerchief.
to meet the family of Sisik.
Seasick.
The child correctly identified several of the relatives, including the widow of Sisik, and he pointed at an oil lamp.
I am your hanky.
He pointed at an oil lamp in the house of Sisik and said that he had done it himself. I don't know. He had done
he
what
make it?
himself.
Did he make
What?
it?
That's what I mean. Done what?
I don't know. Maybe he'd vomited on it because he's seasick.
Oh, okay.
He vomited on the oil lamp because he was seasick.
There you go. He also told of a story of how
He
his son,
needed a handkerchief to wipe his mouth.
he also told a story of how his son had hit him once with his own truck while pushing it.
Is that how he died? Is that how he died? Did his son hit him with his...
Toy truck.
No, like an actual truck.
Was
It didn't say that, but he said he also told the story of how his son hit him once with his own truck while he was pushing it.
I wonder if that's how he
Oh,
died.
no. I
So-
don't know. I'm confused.
Interestingly, all the statements made by young Sanger were correct, and everything matched with the details of the life of Sisik.
Seasick.
Other statements made could not be verified, but he made no misstatements. planets. So
It's all true.
there you have it. The story of Seasick, Handkerchief, and Seasick. Yeah, with the other one. Who was the other one? Sunger?
Wow.
I think we have a couple more.
Yeah, we've got
Yeah.
2 more, I think.
It's just me. I'm so confused now.
Yeah.
Right. Now I'm going to tell you. Apparently, I'm going to tell you about James Leninger.
Leininger.
Leninger.
Jamie's going to tell you about James.
Yeah. In 2004, ABC News aired a profound reincarnation story about a 6-year-old boy named James something.
James something.
Who, at the age of 2, began to have what many believe were spontaneous past life recalls.
I thought you were going to say spontaneously combusted there.
Oh, yeah, that's a different, yeah.
That's
I
different show.
I think Danielle was actually considering human spontaneous combustion after reading some of them words.
Yeah.
But
Could you
anyway,
tell?
it all began innocently enough when he was only 18 months old, and the family visited a war museum. See, are they putting it into that? Oh, look, there's you. Look, it looks like you. There's you in a plane.
All right, you're jumping.
Anyway, I'm giving
You're
away
just
this
making
story.
assumptions.
Yeah. Gradually, the child's fascination with airplanes. See, I knew it was airplanes because I knew this. I am familiar with this story. Gradually, the child's fascination with airplanes increased and developed into reoccurring traumatic nightmares of a burning plane crash.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would wake up screaming, "Airplane crash! Plane on fire! Little man can't get out!" What?
Get your mind out the gutter.
I was thinking about
Get
fantasy.
your mind out the
Island.
gutter.
I was thinking about Fantasy Island. The plane.
The plane. He drew detailed pictures of the fight that claimed his past life. He signed the drawings as James 3, stating he was the third James. As he began to develop speech, James started telling his parents about his former life as a fighter pilot in World War II in the Pacific Campaign.
Well, come back.
Is Danielle gone, Miss?
Come back. You're not allowed to leave.
Yes.
Anyway.
Let me go. Let me go.
I agree.
Little man can't get out.
James not only named the kind of plane he flew, but also the name of the carrier, Natoma. He named a pilot, Jack Larson, who had witnessed his death. All of these statements were verified as true facts. His parents later identified James N. Houston Jr. as the name of the only pilot from the USS Natoma Bay who died in the battle James described. Since the pilot was a JR Jr., it was surmised James Lenin considered himself to be James the Third.
So
Not
because
James
the one that died was James Jr.,
Sorry.
his dad was obviously James Sr., he was James III.
This is where it gets all confusing, isn't it? His parents managed to track down Jack Larson and confirmed he'd seen James Houston's plane hit and crash. They also contacted James's sister from his former life. The sister confirmed the statements James made about their family and their father's alcoholism. She was convinced that James was her brother reincarnated. Eventually, his parents published a book about James's story. Yeah, I remember seeing that on TV, and that's what we're missing here. There was a little bit of emotion going on, what you miss from hearing it here.
Well, you
emotions.
both ruined it.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
We're getting your mind's in the gutter.
I wasn't in the gutter. I was thinking of Tattoo from Fantasy Island when he talked about the plane, but whatever. Hey, I don't claim to be a professional here. I'm just this person here.
Right. Final story. It's probably one of the most famous ones. You might, if you've looked into this before, you've probably heard this story before, and that is Dorothy Eady. The reincarnation story of Dorothy Eady is a fascinating story that actually began when she died at the age of 3. She fell down the staircase and was pronounced dead, allegedly, by the family doctor. Imagine the doctor's shock when he received a call to come back to the house less than an hour later. he'd just like pronounced the child dead, left the grieving parents, buggered off, and he's like, "Come back because she's still alive." So that was the beginning of Dorothy's lifetime belief that she was a reincarnated Egyptian priestess who lived 3,300 years ago. Now, this is where it's bizarre, because the revived Dorothy no longer spoke with a British accent, but with an Egyptian accent. Now, there is an actual medical condition where you can have a head injury and you can actually start speaking a different language. When you, like, after this head injury, it's well documented.
A different language or a different accent?
A whole different language.
Everything.
Really?
Yeah,
There's people that's like had a head injury, just say they're English, and then they'll start speaking French.
Oh, that's
even though they've never learned French.
That's
weird. There's a name for it. Jamie, look it up while I continue reading. So she began having vivid dreams of a temple with a lush garden, and she constantly begged her parents to take her home. And home, when she's living in England, is in Egypt, so it's a bit difficult. And if I went all blurry.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but...
Yeah, man, I need to fix it. I went all blurry. It's giving me a headache. Settings. How do I fix it?
I told you we weren't professional.
We're professionals, everybody. There we go. Yeah. Right. So, obviously, living in England, it's a bit different. Take me home to Egypt. Are you fucking joking? Anyway. Whatever. I'll find it later. So,
you find it later. It's just went.
Instead of taking her to Egypt, which was a big ask, they instead took her to the British Museum. And when little Dorothy saw the Egyptian statues, she ran over to them, kissed their feet, and hugged them, declaring to her parents that these were her people.
Wow.
And I've got a picture of Dorothy. Let me just get that up. That is... Oh, why is that up?
That's not Dorothy.
That's her. That's not the one I wanted. That's her. There we go. That's her. This was a... I've done that. Right. When she found a picture of the Egyptian temple of Seti I, she told her parents it was her home. Her obsession with Egypt led her to move there, and she actually married an Egyptian man. So she moved there, and she had an Egyptian husband, and she called her son Seti, in honor, because she believed that she was one of Seti's priestesses. She soon recovered her memory of being Benfreshit, which means harp of joy. She was a priestess and mistress of the pharaoh Seti I. She broke her vow of celibacy when she became his lover, but to make matters worse, when she became pregnant, she committed suicide to spare the pharaoh public humiliation. So that's what happened in her past life. She had an affair with him, she was pregnant, and she committed suicide to spare him. That's crazy shit, but it's 3,300 years ago, so who knows?
Couldn't she have just moved?
Well, eventually, maybe not with the child of Seti, I should imagine, but eventually, her past life obsession destroyed her marriage. That ended in divorce. However, she did remain in Abydos, and she worked with the Egyptian Department of Antiquities. Her knowledge of ancient Egypt actually astounded the archaeologists and the Egyptologists. Few people had the privilege of seeing inside the temple of Seti I, but the department wanted to test Dorothy's claims. So they led her into the dark temple and asked her to describe it. She passed with flying colours.
That's fucking bitch black.
No, before they actually put light in there, she actually passed with flying colours, even though she couldn't see anything in it. And outside, she pointed out to where the garden had once been, and upon them excavating that area, they found evidence that it was indeed a garden by uncovering things like tree stumps. She enjoyed a full life working with archaeologists at the ancient temple of Seti, and it's believed that she actually gave them the only opportunity that any modern human has ever had to hear, when she actually read the ancient texts, hear actual ancient Egyptians spoken as it would have been spoken 3,300 years ago, because that's how she spoke it. She was given the nickname Seti, which means Mother of Seti, in honour of her son. And her contribution to understanding ancient Egypt and their culture was highly valued and is still highly valued to this day.
Mm.
And that's a very short version of the story, but she had so much knowledge of the practices, the traditions, the beliefs, the systems, and the area that she'd never been to. That is absolutely phenomenal, to be honest.
Interesting.
So
Like I
that
say,
is-
she could maybe explain some of these little mysteries, but then again, it all depends if she's fallen inside with the sort of.
Yeah, and that other picture that I
Stories.
accidentally showed
Yeah.
was actually her when she was older as well. So there she is. And she lived in Egypt. She spent the rest of her life in Egypt, working with the
That's weird.
Egyptologists and the Egyptian antiquities
Interesting.
boards.
Hmm.
And she made massive contributions to the understanding.
Yeah.
And
Quite
that is done for you.
interesting.
Well, that's quite interesting, especially if she could back up, like they say, that garden thing was true. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean,
So that was the final story, and we're going to go round and see what people think. Any comments? Any questions? Any? Danielle,
Anybody have a stance on reincarnation? It's watching.
Danielle, what's your opinion? Firstly, on reincarnation as a whole. Or no, do the stories first, and then do it as reincarnation as a whole. So, what's your opinion on these stories?
I mean, there's compelling facts that each one of them have. I think with the younger ones, it's interesting that they could come up with certain stories and specifics that nobody knew, inclusive of their parents, like they weren't coached on those things. But I'm a skeptic. I'm a skeptic. That's what I say. I need, when you're talking about reincarnation and coming back as somebody, it's a whole other realm. I don't even know. My Christianity, what that teaches us, that reincarnation isn't a thing. However, who says that's got it all right too? There are definitely.
Does it actually say anywhere in the Christian Bible that reincarnation isn't real?
Okay, are we going to get into that?
No, I just wonder why Christians don't believe it's real. Does it actually say that it's not?
Because just like we were talked about, the monotheistic, one soul, you die, you're with the Lord, and it's just something that Christians in general don't believe, that the soul is then transferred on, that we stay in the realm with God, in the heavens. But again, I mean, it really, who knows? We don't know all the answers to everything, and there are some compelling stories that, like I said, these kids that have such vivid memories, and these names they come up with, these locations that they've been to.
How do you explain some of that? Yeah.
I mean, without them, that information being planted, but some of them are at such a young age. How could they even have taught them those things? I don't know. It's a mystery. Hence, we're doing it on Curious Casefiles. Everybody, has their own theories and opinions on it.
Kelly says the Bible says it's appointed for man to die once, but that's the body. That's a man, not the soul, which is not. So that body, that man could die once, but that soul is not a man.
Well, RD has a valid question too.
Hang on, Kelly. What about women?
I don't know. I mean,
just really quickly, it's called foreign accent syndrome, and it's a medical condition in which patients develop speech patterns that are perceived as a foreign accent that's different from their native accent without having acquired it. And it's normally results from a stroke, but it can also develop from head trauma, migraines, or developmental problems. So she did have a head injury when she fell down the stairs, but when she came, she didn't have an English accent like she'd had previously anymore. She had an Egyptian accent, and therefore, when she actually learned Egyptian and was reading these ancient languages, she was able to read them in a language in a way that nobody had ever heard before.
That's fascinating. I don't even know how a head injury could do something like that.
That's
I
weird.
mean, how do you come up with a language you never even heard before? But Kelly, thank you, because that's what I was drawing a blank. The whole episode is just my mind's.
But up there with the sky with a little med.
Yeah, to be absent with the body is to be present with the Lord. That's what I was trying to go with there the other few moments ago.
Jamie,
right? Well, I know, like there was another case similar to that. I think I've heard some of them ones, but there was a similar case where this boy was a fireman. He believed he was a fireman who died in a fire trying to rescue people, and at first it started off with drawings, and then apparently he named the fire department. Then they took him to the fire. He explained his friends and things, what happened, and even described like what was in the sort of police station, the posters and things, and they were there. Obviously, we can say like the fire engine number. I think he listed off, and they were convinced that he was genuine. I mean, we can always question it, and there's always that case of what if, which is good. Could they be fed the information? I do know, which is strange. When we talk about Christianity and the belief that that's all linear, a lot of the TV programs I used to watch used to actually include like a lot of what I would call Christians recalling it because their children has met the Lord. That's how it was perceived, and some of them were quite clear that they were being fed because the parents were like, and you saw the Lord, didn't you? And tell the nice man what he looked like. He had the beard, didn't he? That sort of thing. But it's interesting that if these Christian, in the Christian faith, you'd see it as linear. Why these people particularly were actually quite popular on these TV shows. I don't know why. I'm just
I guess you could say too, like, if for instance you are one that believes in reincarnation but also being Christian, like would that maybe not all souls are reincarnated. Maybe God has a purpose to send certain souls back, not all.
Yeah.
But again,
gray area time. I mean,
it's very gray.
I do believe if it is a thing, I think like when we've heard before, like energy source and things like that, I can see why, like Lisa said at first, people don't believe it when they say, oh, I was Edgar Casey, and then somebody else says I was Edgar Casey and I was
David, whatever his name
I know,
is.
it does look like
David
Wilcock.
David Wilcox is Edgar Casey. Have you seen the both of them?
I've seen Edgar Casey. The guy, are you talking about the guy, the sleeping prophet guy?
Have you seen a picture of Edgar Casey and David Wilcox?
Not side by
side. Oh my God, I'm just show you, Danielle.
They're quite similar. He actually ended up living with...
Does he claim to be? Does he claim to be the reincarnation?
He doesn't claim, right? There is word. He does acknowledge that he does look like him, and he follows...
I was going to say...
He actually ended up living with the person because they talk about the one. That's like this philosophy.
I mean, people can look like each other.
The one, and they do actually look like each other, and they do have the same sort of theories and ideas. And he did actually live with somebody who was part of Eddie Casey's team with the... sort of like a religion thing they followed, yeah. But anyway, what I was thinking, if it is energy, perhaps that's why that people could claim to be the same people, and they could actually both be correct if it was true. Because
look,
that's
Edgar Casey and David Wilcox.
They're quite
very similar,
alike.
Very similar,
yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, if it is energy, then
similar.
They could be sharing the same energy. They could have been part of that energy. Both of their beings could have been part of that one person. I think that's quite possible. Like if you got a bowl full of water and empty it into your cups, both of them cups are independent now, but they could share the same bowl of water originally. And this could be the case of what we're seeing here. But that's whether you believe in it or not.
Good analogy.
I do believe that that's quite possible. I think a lot of things is, possible. We don't know, and that's what we like. We are, we believe in here on this show is, instead of telling people what's not true, what is true. Let's all, we don't tell people what to believe and what to think of, and we cover all different aspects. Yeah, we might have an opinion and we might show that appearance sometimes, but at the end of the day, we don't know. We don't know. It's like we don't know. Like people say about heaven, what's heaven like? We don't know.
No, we don't know.
We get the stories, we get, the information given to us.
Personally, I'm not qualified to tell anybody what to believe.
No.
But we do present you with the information, and some of it is compelling.
That is. Lisa, what do you think then?
Right, well, you might be expecting me to be the skeptical wanker because I've been skeptical all the way through, but I was just playing a skeptic on TV because I actually believe it. I believe it, and I've got reason to believe it. I not only because of what I'm going to tell you in a minute, but because I have had near-death experience, which was quite profound. However, I've done a past life regression, and I remember a past life, and I remembered very specific details about this past life, including the name of a place where I was, and that place was Ravensbrück. And when I looked it up afterwards, this actually existed, and it was because I was a prisoner in Ravensbrück. It was a concentration camp for women, and I had never heard of it before, but I recalled this during this regression, and there was a lot of other things. It was very profound, and it did explain a lot of things, what happened during this past life and how that past life ended correlates with certain things that's happened to me in this life as well. So I'm not going to get into that, but I had never heard of Ravensbrück. I'd heard of your famous Auschwitz and whatever, but I'd never heard of this, and
Interesting.
Yeah. No, it's obviously a skeptic would say, I'm going to be a skeptic.
You'd be a skeptic.
I'm a skeptic. Like they would say, well, obviously you're into this history and research of crimes and things throughout the years. Perhaps you may have not realised that you've listened to it before. But
why would I think I was the Jewish person in World War II that got put in a concentration camp?
But you were also going through the process of regression.
Uh-huh.
Maybe there's more of a spiritual thing that was going on there than maybe you were channeling something.
Well, Lisa and I did this thing.
I've also done an Akashic Records regression.
Yeah, that was spooky.
The Akashic Records regression, and it was interesting.
That was
very
interesting.
Spooky because we both did it. I did one independently of Jamie doing one. And when we came out and spoke about the experience that even though when Jamie, I'm just spoiler alert, Jamie did it wrong.
I did it wrong, yeah. I
did. When we came out and spoke about the actual place that we went to visit these Akashic records, they were identical. The place was identical.
That was unbelievable.
It was
our experience.
A cliffside winding path that went up to the top of a hill, and on top of the hill,
it was greenery. It was like Greek pillars.
It was like a Greek style building with like the columns, and then you went inside. But when you were inside, it was actually like it was a garden, like it was outside, and there was
this big globe.
Yeah,
there, what looked like water pouring over
it. Was
it.
like a round globe, but it was like water, but it was floating in the middle. But there was no water falling onto it. It was just water flowing all around, and we both seen that. And there was a plinth that was like floating, and it had a book on it. But
it sounds cheesy.
But when you actually looked in this book, it wasn't written words. It was like you were watching a movie in this book. And in this movie, it was giving you it showed me, and it was like the universe. Yeah. And it was all done by colour.
Little stars, little lights.
It looked like it wasn't the universe. I thought it was a picture of like a nebula or something in the universe, but it wasn't. It was souls. And it had like all the different coloured souls, and there was like it was like a colour wheel, but it was like a nebula all at the same. It's very difficult to describe, but you had like blue,
pinks,
blue going into pink, going into purple, all the way round, and then like you could like zoom in, kind of, but you're not zooming in. It's a very like you can like just concentrate on what to see in there, and it would like show you, and it showed you your soul groups.
Wow.
And the color of your soul. I've got a purple soul.
Well, of course you do. It's your favorite color.
But then so is Jamie, because Jamie's in my soul group.
Yeah. Wow.
And the people in your soul group are all people that you'll be associated with in all your lives. This is what I learned for this book.
I want to know my soul group.
So, it might be your parents. Like your parents might end up being somebody that was your husband like 10 past lives ago, but it's all people that you live with in these little soul clusters, and they'll all be if you're in like the blue soul group, they'll all be blue souls, but maybe like some of them will bleed into the purple, the next one down, but like they're all connected all the way around in a circle that looks like a fucking galaxy.
That is kind
And
of really
he
strange.
used the book wrong because he didn't understand how to use the book.
Well, the thing is, here's the. I mean, you can't. These are things that can't be absolute. These can't be proven absolute or disproven. These are like you are absolutely sure that this is what you went through. Nobody can tell you otherwise.
I know, but just the fact that Jamie independently had exactly the same thing.
Weird. Yeah. We were very surprised because we were explaining it. And because I made sure I was like, right, don't say nothing yet. Write it down. Explain. That's how we did it. And I was like, oh my god, this is really strange. Because I thought I was just imagining stuff. I thought, I'm just getting, you know.
When I started saying, and he's like, oh my god, right, just stop, write it down because this sounds the same, and it was identical.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do believe it, and I do think that you've got people that are old souls because they've lived several lives before and had these several experiences, and it's an accumulation. And you've got people that are newer souls and maybe a bit more stupid, generally.
Yeah, I don't know
what you think. You know, what do you people think in there? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, even this thing. I mean, I don't know how that happened like that, but. It did. I don't know if I still, I'm not still 100% convinced, because strange things do happen. But I don't believe in too many coincidences, and
that's why, that's why you've got soulmates, and why you've got people that you're drawn to, and you feel like you're instantly drawn to them because they're people that you've associated with in your previous lives. They're just different. It's like a different relationship. I don't mean like a soulmate doesn't mean that you're going to fucking marry them. It could be your best friend as your soulmate, or they're just people that you feel instantly drawn to
within your group that are going to be with you.
Yeah. And so some of these people might come into your life and have a very close relationship with them for just a couple of years, and then you lose contact with them. But that was supposed to happen because they've done their part in this life.
Yeah.
And then in the next life, they might play a bigger part. They might actually end up being your spouse or your parent or whatever. But yeah.
I guess it makes, I mean, in some ways, like you said, you're like drawn to different people, but the whole idea of a soul group is interesting.
You froze it. I have no idea what you just said.
Oh, well, the whole idea of the soul group thing and people that you encounter and that you might, be drawn to.
I don't believe in this twin flame bullshit, though. I think that's shit.
Well, the twin flame is, something a little different. That's the splitting.
That's a whole cult thing. There's a whole cult going on with the twin flame. Like your twin flame is basically, they believe that it's better than a soulmate. It's like two people that are two halves of the same soul. And they've got a whole cult going on, actually, in Michigan to do with twin flame. Yeah, whole cult thing going on, and we might get into that because we want to do a couple of cult.
Yeah,
episodes.
by the way, Danielle, we need you to go along
we
there.
We need you to go and infiltrate this cult, Danielle.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Do you believe in reincarnation? Do you think it's a load of bullshit? Do you think that these children are given they're getting some residual memory, maybe?
I don't know. I tend to think there's no absolute, and I'm keeping my mind open to everything.
It could be also it's not their memories, but there's some sort of residual memory left in certain locations, even though some of them have been a little bit apart. But I mean, you've also got your alternate universes going on.
Yeah, you got so
many things it could be, but. There's definitely something weird going on. And I don't think it's always the parents, because there has been cases where the parents have been devoutly Christian or devoutly of a religion that just don't believe in reincarnation whatsoever. And their child is insisting that they've lived before. And they're like, it's not possible because that's not what happens. And the child has actually ended up convincing them that this is real because they wouldn't fucking drop it. And the things... And it's been maybe another family member or a neighbour or a friend or something that started looking into it and actually, well, wait a minute, this person does exist. Yeah. But it's weird.
Strange, yeah.
Strange.
Right.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Sorry it wasn't completely professional in some
What are you
areas.
talking about, Danielle? It was completely and 100% professional.
For those that didn't watch this live and you rewind and watch later, I apologize. But I gave it my best. I was bamboozled.
Bamboozled, yeah.
I was bamboozled.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was a trick.
And
But
before we go, remember to head on over to thecuriouscasefiles.com/store. Put anything you like in your little basket and put in the code at checkout. Ho, ho, ho. That's H-O, H-O, H-O. Ho, ho, ho. Merry fucking Christmas. And
No.
get 10% off all of
That's
your
missing the
orders.
fucking
that's not part of the code.
Don't type in Merry fucking Christmas.
yeah, you don't know what you'll get as a result.
Don't just type in ho ho ho. There's no Merry fucking Christmas needed, but you get 10% off, and it will be a Merry fucking Christmas because you're going to get a bargain. You're going to save some money, and you're going to get some awesome stuff and support us and help us create this content with all the amazing mispronunciations that Danielle and Jamie do, but I never do.
Hey,
I just stubbed my toe.
that's what you get. That's karma. Remember, we
That's
just talked about karma.
Damn it! Right.
Thanks for joining
Bye.
us. Please like and share.
See you next week.
Thank you
next
very much,
Tuesday.
everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.